Okay, so we're going to start then. Welcome to the September 15th meeting of the Westborough Planning Board. As is typical with all online meetings in today's era, I have to read this disclaimer into the record. The Westborough Planning Board will hold a virtual meeting on Tuesday, September 15th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Westborough Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. Members of the public wishing to participate from their remote location are encouraged to email their questions to planning@town.westborough.ma.us. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. The meeting can be viewed on Verizon Channel 24 and Charter Channel 191 or live streamed online at westbrookTV.org. In the event that we are unable to do so, but despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website, live streamed online at westbrookTV.org, audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive records as soon as possible after the meeting. So, Kristen, can you make a note to, looks like I may have gotten disconnected.
Can still hear you, Mark.
All right. No, I can't get the Zoom. There it is. Okay. All right. So can we make a note to see if I still have to read that disclaimer into the record for every meeting? It's a pain. All right. So let's start the meeting. I see Jim Robbins is on. The first agenda item for tonight is an update on the amendment to the master plan.
Can you hear us, Jim?
I can hear you, but I think I lost Mark. So I don't know what he said.
He just went to the first item on the agenda, the amendment to the master plan scope of services item.
Oh, okay, thank you. So I'll do my best to explain there. I'm assuming that that's what he asked for. So as you know, the planning board voted at a previous meeting to accept the changes to, or the amendment to the master plan contract, subject to town council's review and approval. Town council made several suggestions in a red line document that was sent back to the consultant. And after discussion with the consultant, they have agreed to make all the changes that council wished. So the consultant, VHB, will now send a complete, clean copy of the amended contract back to us, and we will send it to the town manager to be executed. I have spoken with the town manager. She agrees to that process. So as soon as we get the clean version of the amendment back, we will send it to Christy Williams to be executed. I think we've lost Mark.
Got him coming back in.
All right, I'm back on. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, Mark.
All right. I'm assuming that was just me that cut out. So, Jim Robbins, I was asking you for an update on the amendment to the master plan scope of services.
Which he gave us.
Okay, great. I'm up to date on that. So the next item is an update on 228 Ruggles Street. You guys covered that. We won't be taking that up tonight. We got a letter requesting that to be moved to next week's agenda.
Yes, and Mark, through you, through the chair, you see, we forwarded you an email from a letter from Guaranteed Builders requesting that we just continue them to the next meeting because they're still working on making one of the lots comply with zoning.
Yeah, and just for an update, they're on the historical commission schedule for tomorrow night.
Good.
Is it, wait, tomorrow night? I put my calendar.
Probably not tomorrow.
No, I'm sorry, for the 23rd.
Yeah.
A week from tomorrow night. They're looking for approval of a demolition permit.
Okay, any questions from the board on that? We don't need to vote on that, do we, Jim?
You do not need to vote because you gave them an extension previously to the 30th.
Okay. So the next agenda item is an update on the Lyman Street sidewalk. The Pulte Homes is putting sidewalks in on Lyman Street. And Jim Ball, do you want to update everybody? You seem to have, you certainly know who was there better than being a
I can do that, Mark, if you'd like. Yeah, on I believe it was Thursday of last week, we had a follow-on site walk because a number of neighbors and folks had missed the prior one and had expressed an interest after much discussion to have a second site walk and be brought up to speed so that we made sure no one was missing. So that's what we did. And we had several more of the neighbors. Mark was there, Shelby Marshall was there, Lisa was there again, and the team from Pulte, and Chris from DPW. So we had a big crew.
Jim, was Saeed there?
No, apparently he had a phone call or a conflict. I was expecting him, but he was not.
So he hasn't attended either of the walks?
No, his wife was there last week, so she did come to represent them, but he was not there, no.
All right.
And so they had made some adjustments to the plan from our comments on the initial plan, which is mostly with regard to plantings to stabilize the slopes. There was a great deal of discussion. I will say that the folks in the condos continue to be extremely concerned about the steepness of the slope that they're proposing and the ability to maintain and care for that. So there's a lot of resistance there. And then there was a great deal of discussion about 11 very large mature trees coming down, when if it was done on the other side of the street, there would be no trees coming down. So towards the end, we considered a compromise because one of the concerns was if it started on the other street across from where the old sidewalk ends right now, it would be not very much line of sight around the corner for people crossing to see, and they were concerned about having two crosswalks. So one thing we spoke about late in the meeting is the possibility of coming down towards, happened to be my property, which is in the middle, where there's very little disruption and there would be no removal of trees. And that would add, I'm going to say 150, maybe 200 feet plus of sight line for people if we did a crosswalk then to the other side and then went the rest of the way, which would involve very level land, no removal of trees, and then cross back at the lake. So that was, we had a lot of good conversation. That was one discussion. Lisa may be able to add. I don't know if she and Chris or Pulte have had any further discussion about those options since, but thankfully it was well attended. There was a lot of discussion about options, and it's back in their court to come back, I think, the town and Pulte from there.
Lisa,
Mark,
did you want
that
to
sum it up well? And yeah, I think Lisa's on, right?
Yeah, she is.
Yes, yeah, that is all correct. We are waiting for Pulte to come back with a revised plan on what they think is the best course of action. Then we'll take a look at it. Of course, if it involves going on the other side, which we believe it will be at this point, or proposed to be, we will have to hold another site walk for those folks to be able to chime in on their thoughts on it. So right now we're just waiting, and as soon as we get that, we'll try to arrange as soon as possible a meeting for everybody.
And probably to give perspective there, to Lisa's point, with the assumption it was on this side, I think it was mostly people on this side contacted. Where we're talking about a potential compromise, the majority, the first two homes on the street that have small front yards would be avoided by coming down towards my property on the north side and then crossing. The majority of the remaining homes, it would be behind their fences, and their fences wouldn't be disturbed, but there are a couple of properties that it would be in their front yard. So particularly, I think those folks need to be notified. But to Lisa's point, if that's going to get changed, in fairness to them, it would be important to bring that to their attention and get any feedback from them.
All right, so DPW will undertake that once we see the revision from Pulte, and we'll be notified, and either Jim Robbins or myself or Jim, we'll have representation from the planning board there. But at this point, I don't think it's anything we need to act on. This is just informational. So, anybody have any questions? I know, Hazel, you have already asked one. Anyone else on the board have a question? Okay, let's move on. The next agenda item is a discussion of WRTA and the VIA van service. We had Dennis Litka, I believe. Dennis, I'm sorry, I forgot your title. You're with WRTA, right? Dennis, you're going to need to unmute yourself.
I'm the administrator of the Worcester Regional Transit Authority. And with me tonight is Alex Bluestein from VIA, who's going to show you the actual service area and how the system's going to work.
Just as a little background, if I could, for the board's purposes and anyone that's watching at home who might be interested, is, as you're aware, Westborough for years has had what we call the Westborough Shuttle, which has been a subsidiary of the WRTA, the Worcester Regional Transit Authority. And we're very fortunate now to have a new service to replace the Westborough Shuttle, which is no longer available to us. The VIA van service, I think, is going to be very exciting for us. I won't explain the service. I will leave that to Dennis and Alex. But just as a sort of an intro, we're very grateful this evening to have both Dennis and Alex present. They gave this presentation earlier to myself and to the town manager. And then last month, at the end of the month, they gave this presentation to our Economic Development Committee, which was very well received. I think this is going to be a very good replacement for the WRTA shuttle. I think it will be a better replacement. And with that said, I'm going to leave it to Dennis to go forward.
Well, as we kind of, Jim has alluded to, the Westborough shuttle has been around for a while, and it has not been widely subscribed for whatever the reason. And I think some of it has to do with the way it runs and how it got around. But it was not very flexible. And when we started to think about changing that, I made a commitment as administrator of the WRTA to Westborough that I would replace it. If we simply wouldn't end it, we would replace it with a far better service. And at the time, we were talking with VIA about the types of service that they can offer, which is an on-demand service. And the beauty of it is that the system can actually pick people up and drop people off in never-ending routes that can be modified incredibly flexibly to adapt to where people are and where they want to go. We wrote a grant, a discretionary grant to Mass DOT, and we were funded for that. And we have funding for the service for a little over a year. And we hope that along the way will be very successful, and it'll be a service that the residents of Westborough will learn to appreciate and use. Couple of words, we're going to use the same protocols we use on the WRTA vehicles for health and cleanliness on the vehicles. So we'll have social distancing on the vehicles. They're smaller vehicles, so we'll be limiting the number of riders to 2 or 3. We will be cleaning the vehicles after every group of passengers moves through, and then every day the vehicles will be thoroughly cleaned. Just the same protocol we follow at the WRTA for our fixed route vehicles. With that said, I'd like to introduce Alex Bluestein of VIA, who's going to show you a PowerPoint presentation, which will, I hope, answer a lot of questions that you may have about how this service is going to work and see the potential for the town of Westborough.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Dennis. And thank you, Jim. Good evening.
Alex, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Anyone else getting a lot of background noise on this? I don't know if there's a way, if everybody is, if there's anyone who's not muted, if they could mute. Am I the only one hearing a lot of background noise? It seems to have gone away, so I don't know if somebody turned something off or not. But Alex, I'm going to go back to you and let you start, and hopefully that'll clear up.
No problem. Can you, just want to make sure you can hear me right now, hopefully.
Yep.
Yes, Alex.
We can hear you.
And you can see my screen?
We can.
Awesome. All right. Well, first of all, good evening, and just want to say thank you to everyone on this call for having us tonight, and to Dennis and to Jim. My name is Alex Bluestein. I'm super excited to be telling you tonight about our upcoming launch in the Westborough community and in partnership with the WRTA. Really wanted to first give you an introduction to who VIA is. We'll talk specifics about the service and then finish it up with any questions. So just to tell you a little bit about who we are as a company, we work with all different types of public and partner agencies to help them improve their public transportation. Just to show you an example of who are our partners and where do we actually work, we actually have over 120 partnerships in 20 countries globally, and are currently growing that list. Aside from that, we like to focus on fully integrated solutions for many different aspects of public mobility. So while today, this project that we're going to be talking about is an on-demand public transit service, we also do work with fixed route and public transit, non-emergency medical transit and paratransit. School bus routing is something new that we've also been working on, in addition to things like corporate university shuttles, and last, things like integrated mobility. So super excited just to talk about some of our product offerings and specifically on demand tonight. To tell you a little bit about some of our technology that we're really proud of, we've coined something which is called a virtual bus stop. We are able to service more people moving in the same direction by encouraging them to walk a little bit. So for example, instead of doing necessarily door-to-door service, we may ask that you walk 100 feet to meet your driver at a safe, predetermined corner. And this allows us to really get great utilization of the vehicles and allow more people to use our service. But most importantly tonight is what we're so excited to tell you about is this new service within Westborough. So this is going to be a microtransit service that is actually launching on Tuesday. So Tuesday, September 22nd. You are going to be able to go from anywhere to anywhere within this Westborough community. So you can see the service zone that's on the right of my screen. We've also called out a few distinct destinations. These are not the only places you can go. As I mentioned earlier, you can go to literally anywhere to anywhere within this zone. But we do want to call out that you can go to the Westborough and Southborough MBTA stations. You can also go to shopping at North Rail Crossing. You can go to the senior center. There's tons of really great use cases that we're hoping this service is going to provide. And of course, we want to make this affordable, reliable, and accessible. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more. We also have 4 vehicles, one of which is a wheelchair accessible vehicle. The service will operate weekdays, so Monday to Friday, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. As Dennis mentioned, these vehicles are a little smaller, but they're a lot more dynamic. And this is actually an example of our freshly wrapped vehicle. We have 4 Chrysler Pacificas, and then the Way vehicle is a Dodge Caravan, but they're all going to be wrapped in this white, blue, and red combo, which is really in line with the WRTA look. Rides are going to be $2. Really exciting as well. If you go to or from the MBTA train stations, it'll cost you just $1. And I'll talk about this shortly, but the rides are all going to be free for the first month of the service. So through October 22nd, you're actually going to be able to ride for free. Also, doesn't matter where you go, how long your trip is, how many miles, or the duration, it's still going to be that flat $2. And as I mentioned, rides can be booked anywhere as long as the pickup and drop-off address are located within the zone. And as Dennis also mentioned, we are limiting the capacity of the vehicle to a max of 3 passengers to encourage social distancing. Great, so just wrapping up here, a few screenshots of what it actually looks like to book a ride. Super easy and intuitive. We also will be offering phone bookings for those people that do not have access to a smartphone or do not feel comfortable using the application. You'll actually be able to call in to our customer support team and book a ride over the phone. We also are doing a lot of community outreach thanks to groups like you. So if you have any other ways that we can help spread the word, please let us know. We have digital assets. We're actually working on distributing printed assets. So would love the community's help in actually getting the word out. To download and book a ride, all you need to use is the VIA app, VIA, and just type it in your Apple App Store, your Google Play Store, and in the next few days, the service will be live. And on the 22nd, you can actually book a ride. And that is my presentation. So thanks again for having us, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, let's, anybody on the board have a question on this?
Could he put the map of service back up?
Sure, just give me 1 second. Okay, let me know when you can see.
Okay, Hazel, what was your question?
As I was looking, I just wanted to make sure that Arrive was included. And it looks like it is. I just wanted to.
The apartment complex?
Yeah.
Yes, it is included.
Okay.
Is it Arrive?
Yeah.
Oh, the one at Fountainhead. No, okay, yeah.
The
Okay.
one near Northborough Crossing, correct?
No, the Fountainhead Apartments on Route 9. You go right past it if you're.
Yeah, it's not Fountainhead anymore. It's called Arrive, right? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Actually, I'm also noticing it doesn't seem to go to like Chandler Pond or on Mill Road. Am I seeing that right? And not that I think it has to, but that just seems like there's some good sized chunks of the town that are not being served.
Tim, I'm having trouble hearing you, but I think the gist of what you're concerned about is there's some areas in town. I heard you mention Mill Road, a couple other areas that might not be served. I'm going to have Alex respond to that, but I think Alex said earlier that it's basically demand responsive. They'll go anywhere in town.
I just want to make sure I'm having a hard time hearing, but I think the question is, what was the service zone and how did we decide upon that? Dennis, if you don't mind jumping in here.
Sure. What we did is we looked at where the residential properties were and where possible destinations that people in Westborough would want to go. Are there some streets that aren't in the list? Yes, but the density, residential density is relatively low. One of the benefits of working with VIA is as we get data, every call that comes into VIA, whether we are able to book a ride or not, if somebody calls and said, I live in Westborough at this address and I want to go to someplace in Southborough or someplace in Northborough outside the zone, we cannot do that right away. However, that call gets logged and their destination gets entered into the database. So if, for example, on one side of the section of this map, if we get more residents that are calling and want to book rides but aren't exactly in the area, we can adapt the service area to accommodate the need for any needs the riders or your residents may have. So this is a starting exercise to try to rope in as many folks as we think that would ride this type of service, and the destinations that they may want to go to around the town. So we'll be back in touch with probably the Economic Development Commission and maybe the Planning Board or the Board of Selectmen with a modified route plan, maybe later on after 90 or 120 days of experience here. And again, this is a flexible, dynamic system that can be modeled much more easily than our regular fixed route service, which requires public hearings and everything else. This is a demand-driven system.
So in other words, if you live in an area of town, I mean, I noticed that, I don't think up on Adams Street isn't included, or out on Glen Street, or out on, you know, back in that area. Those areas of town are not included. If you call from one of those areas and wanted to ride, you would not be able to get it at this initial stage. And let's say you wanted to ride downtown to the library, or, you know, to the commons down there. But if you lived up in one of those residential areas that wasn't covered by the map, does that mean that you could not be picked up?
Yes, and I'll just sort of answer this with what I was saying earlier. But if you go to the edge of the zone, you'll be able to hail a vehicle from there, and you can take it to the Bay State Commons. The one thing too that Dennis mentioned that's really important to us is trying to understand what is the demand data for rides that we cannot serve. So realizing that we can't serve everywhere at the beginning of launch, we're actually going to be able to see those requests come in. So it'll say, hey, you're out of zone, please go closer to book a ride. And we'll be able to see what's the story. So for example, if we see that there's a lot of demand, you know, and we need to bump the zone a little bit, those are conversations that we can have at the WRTA and do that dynamically in real time. So we'll be looking, you know, currently with this initial zone to encompass as many riders and use cases that we can solve for, and then look to see demand that we aren't serving and where those requests are coming from, and hope to include as many people as
possible. All right. So I'm just getting a little frustrated with the background noise, but I'll just have to deal with it, I guess. Any other questions from the board for Alex or Dennis on this?
Mark, quick question. Alex, so I just downloaded the app and set up an account, and when I'm on the map, I'm out of zone. So how will I, if I just want to help like my parents, other people, how will I find where the zone is on the app? Do I hit the get help, or do I slide around on the screen and the map until I find it? How's that going to work?
Yeah, the zone will actually be live on Friday. So
that's
it's not
why.
live yet. Yeah, so if you're in Westborough, it's not going to be appearing. Tomorrow, by the end of the day, though, you will be able to call our customer support number and leave a voicemail if you have any questions about getting set up with an account. And our goal is to actually have the Polygon, like I showed in the presentation, live by Friday. If you try booking a ride, it's going to tell you, hey, we're not live. We're launching on September 22nd. So we usually only make it live for a few days before launch.
Got it. That's why. So anywhere right now would be out of zone because it's not live. Okay, great. Thank you.
And thanks for downloading.
You're definitely in the heart of that zone, and hopefully Hazel is too, because I want to get
or with my new sidewalk, I can walk to it.
Right. I am way out of zone.
No, you're in the zone there.
Why not?
I think you are. I think you underestimate how far down it goes, but we'll find out on Friday.
All right.
I'll check it out. I'll come down and get lunch at the food truck. There's Via there because it'll be free.
All right.
All right. Alex, Dennis, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm really excited to have you come to town. I think hopefully it'll take off and be well used. I know it's a tough time to get started like this. But,
there's just one other thing I'd like to say before we kind of wrap up, and that is that in my time at the Worcester Regional Transit Authority, we have emphasized continuous marketing efforts. We've continued to reach out and modify and talk to groups about services that we're thinking about and where we can go, so that in the case of Westborough, we're going to now move to the next level. We're going to be meeting with some businesses in Westborough and with the Chamber of Commerce and the 495 group of the Route 9 corridor group, so that the marketing project is still going to continue on after we've launched the service on the 22nd. And we hope to have that our efforts, future marketing efforts, augmented by word of mouth and people saying what a great service. And there'll be some media. We're going to produce a video that you can put on the webpage about booking a ride and where it'll take people for some examples. And so again, what you're seeing now is just the rollout, which is to the official groups in the town, but we're going to continue to market and get the word out through the fall and into the winter.
Thank you so much, Dennis. I appreciate it, and Alex as well. We'll hopefully hear more about this in the near future. So I'd like to move on to the next agenda item, which is establishment of a project security bond and lot releases for Silver Hollow Estates. I'm going to turn this over to Jim Robbins to give the board an update on this, because I think we're not quite ready to take a bond on this, but we're probably going to try and release some lots to the town planner to release to the builder once the bond is established. So Jim, go ahead and update everyone on this. And then
Yes, thank you, Mark. So as you know, Silver Hollow Estates subdivision up on Mount Pleasant Street has been making progress. They've been building the roadway, installing utilities, and doing work on Mount Pleasant Street. And the next step, once utilities are installed and functioning and the binder course is in place to secure safety for the streets, the next step would be for the developer to request the release of house lots. Obviously, the release of house lots requires a performance guarantee that is posted by the developer to complete items that are outstanding and would be completed after house lot construction. For example, curbing, some sidewalks, installation of street trees, and of course the top course on the roadway. You don't want to install those things prior to house lot construction because they probably get damaged by construction vehicles and work on each individual site, each individual house lot. So you reserve those to the end. But house lot construction would commence and complete and occupancy received before those other items were complete and secured by the town. So I sent the board a memo, an email, I should say, this afternoon, late this afternoon, explaining the process. And for those at home, the planning board has established a covenant when we approved the subdivision, and the applicant guaranteed that he would complete the ways and the public services in the town, and that he would build the subdivisions according to the plan. The town then places the building lots under a covenant, so that in order for the developer to have access to the covenant, he must complete certain items, and the covenant guarantees that the lots will not be released to him until those items are complete. At release of the lots for the covenant, a building permit can be acquired for construction of the house, and that's where the performance guarantee comes in that I explained earlier. That guarantees the completion of the public elements for the plan. The town engineer presented an estimate for completion of those items, only associated with the lots that the developer would request to be released today. And that amount is $249,510. And that, again, is associated only with the 6 lots that the applicant is asking for at this time. So I don't know if Kristen can share my draft motion, but the members of the board should have that.
Well, I have it, Jim.
Okay, so one little bit more of information. You have Steve Durrett, who is the project manager representing the applicant here this evening. Steve and I have discussed this and arrived upon an agreement where if it was the board's pleasure, they could release the 6 lots to me to be held until Steve was able to get with his client to secure financing in a document that would be presented to the planning board in one of our security format forms, which is in the subdivision rules and regs. That would then be presented to the town treasurer and to town council for review as to form. It would then come back to the planning board to accept. Once the board accepts that, they would need to sign it, and it would need to be signed in front of a notary public at my office, at the planning board office, because we have a notary in the office to notarize the signatures. Then and only then would I release the lot releases to the applicant so that he can apply for a building permit. And right now, Kristen is showing the form that lists the lots that the applicant would like. And as you can see on that form, he's asking for lots 1, 2, 3, 6, 25, and 26, which are the lots that are served by town sewer. And I know you're aware there are 26 lots in this subdivision. 20 of them are served by a group septic. The other 6 lots, which are the 6 that he's requesting at this time, will be served by town sewer, which has been installed to serve those lots. So I would turn it over now to Steve Durrett if he wants to add any more.
Steve, are you need to? Yeah.
I'm also called in, so that's why
Right. Yeah.
you can hear me. Anyway, I received the bond estimate this afternoon and had a little bit of time to review it. And one of the points that I raised with Jim is that some of the items that are listed are already there. Some other items I would like to talk to Lisa about so that we could firm up the bond amount. It's definitely conservative, and I think based on the motion that Jim wrote, we certainly could go forward with that, subject to discussion with the town engineer to refine the bond amount, I think, to be more correct with our current progress. And I guess just an answer to those who wonder perhaps what's happening with the rest of the subdivision and its construction. At the intersection of Meadowlark and Upper Barred Owl, which is roughly between lot 8 and 10, as you see on the map. From there down the hill, we will be base paving that later on this week. Jim talked about utilities as well. The electric conduit piping is already installed in the entire subdivision. National Grid has established a schedule to pull the wires into the subdivision starting on the 21st. And the gas lines are about a third of the way completed. And so a good portion of the remaining part of the work will be done approximately by the end of this month. So we'll be talking about a bond for the balance of the work as well pretty soon. But because these lots that are discussed being lots that are served by town sewer, and most of them are roughly from the crest of the hill about where the word owl is in the middle of the run of Barred Owl Road, flows to the north and the west by gravity, and likewise lot 6 is a street lot on the southern entrance and the south side of the southern entrance to the subdivision. So that's the reason for the first 6 being what they are, because they are served by town sewer. The upper part of it, that is Meadowlark, the left-hand road, and the basically the upper part of Barred Owl are basically complete with all the services in the road, base pavement in the road, the curbing completed. The sidewalk is complete, both base course and finish course, as required for that particular part of the subdivision. And there's a few other items that are also done that have been estimated in the bond amount.
So, Steve, thanks for that update. I'm just a little confused if, and maybe this question is for Jim. If we're going to come back and vote the security, to accept the security, whatever amount that ends up being, whether it be the 249 or something else, what's the advantage to voting the lots now? Why don't we just vote those when we accept the security, Jim?
You certainly can.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to speak for my client on that one. There's millions of dollars invested in this project so far. And the client would like to begin the process of trying to recover some of their investment. So, you know, the process, as we know, has been time consuming. Let me use that phrase, I guess. And that, you know, the client has met the requirements for these first 6 lots. I don't see what the purpose would be to deny them the right to build. There is
Well, yeah, but the way that Jim explained it is that he's not going to release the lots until the security has been approved by the planning board anyway. So even if we voted those tonight, those aren't going to be released for you to start building on until the security is posted. And
well, that's true, but that, and so I guess I don't quite understand. In other words, the way I understand the motion is that if the planning board votes to release these lots, it's subject to the conditions of the motion. Getting those documents in place start with the idea that, in fact, we have a bond. We know what that bond amount is, and we know, you know, what the rest of the process is in terms of filing with the town treasurer and other pieces of the 4 different documents that are required. You know, there's, I guess, as much process on our side as there is on the planning board side. As Jim said, and I'm not arguing it, is your right to decide what to do here, but, you know, to the benefit of the client, with this stuff posted, you know, the process can go forward. As you know, the additional stuff is required once all of this is done, is that now you've authorized the opportunity for the client to submit documents to the building department to for the review and approval of those documents prior to issuing a building permit. And it's my understanding that the building commissioner doesn't want to receive that until this part of the process is done. Secondarily, we have a number of reservations on these lots for which the potential future owners would be interested in seeing the process move along.
Mark, a question, if I may?
Yeah, Jim, go ahead.
So just to be clear, Steve and Jim, if we approve this as this motion as written, it allows you to get some other work done, even though until we actually approve the security agreement, you won't be able to release those lots. Jim, is that accurate? So this would provide you ability to continue to make progress despite the fact, to Mark's point, until we actually approve that security agreement, no lots will be released.
So the building application process takes a couple weeks. The lot release is one of the items in the building application. He could file his building application with the provision that the lot release form would be attached when provided. There are other reviews in the building permit application that need to occur. Installation of utilities need to be confirmed, things with the Department of Public Works and the engineering department. That work can move forward. I would have the lot releases in the file, but they would not be released to Mr. Durrett or to any of the project staff until we have an approved and endorsed and notarized security. So it may give him some comfort for his client. It may allow him to make progress in other areas of the building application. But as far as getting an actual building permit to build the houses, he's really no closer than he is tonight. But I don't have any problems doing that. We've done it before. The security is really the key. The board won't give the lot releases to the applicant and the building commissioner until the security is endorsed by the planning board.
So I would just make the comment that given that it allows Steve to continue some other work, but yet not move forward without the security on the actual lot releases, I would be in favor of it. Because that helps me to understand why to Mark's point, why we would even do this yet.
I think it's clear in my motion.
Jim, can I just ask, you said we've done this before. I don't think we've actually released lots to your custody before we've had a security bond?
In the past, you have released lots to my custody. You did that at Orchard Hill and Orchard Estates. I can't remember whether or not the security was fully in place at the time. I do share the board's concern for doing things out of order. I have provided an alternative that would protect the board, but allow the applicant to feel they're making progress. But again, they could not get a building permit until they have a signed lot release in the hands of the building commissioner, and they can't get that until the planning board has approved the security after following the review of both town council and the town treasurer.
Yeah, I guess as long as we're clear that that's the condition of the building permit and the lot release, that we need that security in place, and that we'll see that again before us. I'm not against the idea of giving him a head start on the rest of the process if that's going to be helpful. I've read the motion. I don't object to it necessarily. Anyone else on the board have questions about it? Hazel, Tim's shaking his head no. Hazel, anything? Hazel, you're gonna unmute. Yep.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we put the motion out there? I will move. Sorry, let me just get back there. I move that the planning board approve the release of building lots 1, 2, 3, 6, 25, and 26 from the project covenant for Silver Hollow Estates residential subdivision. The lot release forms are to be held by the town planner until such time as the applicant has provided a project security agreement in an amount not to exceed $249,510 to guarantee the completion of project elements serving these lots as shown on the definitive plans. The security agreement shall be provided to the planning board for its review and approval and executed by the board prior to the lots being conveyed by the town planner to the applicant.
Second that, Mark.
Okay, Jim seconded it. Any discussion of that motion? Okay, I think it says up to, the bond shall not exceed the 249, so that'll give the applicant some leeway to discuss the bond amount with town departments, including the engineer. So I think that covers it, Jim. That was well written. Thank you. All right, so if there's no other questions on that, I'll do a roll call vote. All those in favor, Jim Ball?
Yes, Mark.
Tim Paris?
Yes.
Hazel?
Yes to approve.
Okay, is Tim Kaler on? No, he's not, right? I don't see. Okay, well, I'll vote yes as well. That's 4-0. Steve, I think I would say thank you and goodbye, but I think you're on for the next agenda item as well, so.
Yeah, it would be nice if it was goodbye, but thank you. And thanks for the consideration. This process has been a very interesting process. And I think that the town will be pleased with the outcome of the construction there.
Well, Steve, it's moving along a little better now, so you can take some credit for that. But the next agenda item is the Fail School Site Plan Development and related matters. I'm going to ask Jim just to introduce this, and then I think Steve will address the board and we can ask some questions. So
I'm going to leave the lion's share of this to Steve. Steve called me on behalf of the school department asking if we could talk about a possible amendment to the site plan, specifically a condition with regard to parking during construction. As you know, the site plan approval required all parking of workers deliveries, and equipment associated with the construction on the project site during construction. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it now to Steve.
Thank you. Now I'm wearing my school building committee chairman hat, and I bring this forward to the planning board on behalf of the school building committee. I guess just to outline the beginning and where we are, the original design and development and contracting, etc., was all based on the site plan review and the conditions placed on the building permit for the new field school, with no on-street parking. What gummed up the works here is that due to COVID-19, construction people are not allowed to carpool. And so the issue has been, so far, if you've gone by the site, you've noticed that it's pretty chock-a-block full, with having graded some of the earth storage piles to make room for the construction people as well as the teachers now. So with the issue of the fact that we are now beginning erection of steel on the site such that we'll begin to increase the workforce, that at this point there is no other place for them to park. As I mentioned in the original contract documents, we had made the contractors themselves responsible for where their people would go and how they got them to the site. Original plans were for people to end up driving and parking wherever they could, and their contractors would have, in effect, brought them to the site via cycling carpools from wherever they were parking to the site, and therefore not have to park on the street. Because of the COVID-19 restrictions where they can't carpool, there isn't any other way for them to get to the site except to park reasonably close to the site and walk to the site. So what we have done is put to our general construction manager, what are you going to do under these circumstances? And so they worked up different alternatives for us, of which to, in effect, change the construction schedule, which has risk of additional cost in and of itself. And by, in effect, changing the way people would park on the site, the cost to us outside of the original contract to do that is $65,000, which is money spent for a temporary purpose and disappears. Other alternatives were also proposed. The next alternative, in detail, I can't explain, but its cost was, in effect, by acquiring opportunity to use the lot uphill from the school for temporary parking, and the cost for that to us was on the order of $160,000, if my memory serves. Again, a temporary expense, out of pocket, not included. Neither of these monies would be included in the MSBA contribution. It would be all taxpayer money, not anticipated, and not refundable in any way. The other approach was to park at a different place, and somehow the people would be able to walk to the site, not easily. But that was going to cost us out of pocket again $250,000. Now, clearly, on-street parking for a period of time basically would cost the project nothing or a small amount of money. And so I was asked by the committee, particularly an interest, I guess, in having talked to one of our members who's on the finance committee, as well as another member of the finance committee, to bring this forward to the planning board for consideration. As I said, all of these costs that I just outlined as being alternatives to parking on the street are out of pocket, not estimated, and they would last at least as long as we have the construction restriction by the governor of Massachusetts. And so I'm bringing it forward for at least a consideration. And the committee will also be bringing this issue forward to other committees, Finance Committee, Selectmen, Conservation Commission, members of the School Building Committee have been given the charge to deliver this particular discussion to the others as well. Now, one of the things that we had hoped for was that if there was an opportunity for us, if we have to invest money that isn't budgeted and is taxpayer money, that in fact it could be invested in such a way to provide parking, but provide a benefit as well. And as you know, we're having a special town meeting coming up shortly for the acquisition of land on the other side of Eli Whitney. And if nothing else, if we have to spend the money, perhaps we could invest that $65,000 that would have a permanent benefit to the town in developing some portion of that potential new acquisition as part of a permanent parking lot there. So those are the issues that are before the School Building Committee. What we would really like to do is not have to spend the money because we've already had to hit our contingency based on how difficult the bidding has been and the fact that we have had to hit the contingency to try to make all the pieces fit, including value engineering of various parts of the school in order to reduce its cost. COVID-19 and the governor's orders for which we are complying with, including the contractors, we have not been as successful as we had hoped in our bid process. So I think that's pretty much the outline of what's going on here and why we're discussing it with the planning board for some consideration as to what we might do. Now, as I mentioned, the need for more parking comes from the fact that with the steel being erected, of which a fair section was done starting yesterday, and the steel decking, which will go on the structural steel, and the beginning of placing concrete there, and eventually, hopefully, getting enough of it done to close it in during the winter, that this period of necessity for parking additional cars, which have been estimated at approximately 40, would last from sometime, say, the beginning of November through the end of school in 2021. And so, you know, again, it's money out of the taxpayer's pocket that potentially could be avoided if we could get some consideration for how and where we could park cars in the vicinity on the street. And
So
you know, we've talked about this a couple of times in meetings, and anybody who's reviewed the website minutes for construction meetings would have seen this.
So Steve,
thank
you're
you.
talking about 40 vehicles parking on Eli Whitney from a period of November 2020 through the end of the calendar year 2021 or the school year 2020?
School year 21, because by then two things will happen. Of course, the teachers would be out, and so the existing parking would be available again. But more importantly, the construction progress would be such that we would be beginning to, you know, be able to grade the permanent additional parking that's planned, as well as getting some of the construction equipment off the site and removing some of the piles of dirt for backfill for the new school project.
Okay, so through June of 2021.
Yes.
All right. Any questions from the board for Steve on this?
Yes, Mark.
Yes, Jim.
Quick question. Steve, just given the time frame, I'm wondering if by November, as golf winds down, would it be possible to use some portion of the country club parking lot and just have and that it's close? I know maybe you have to shuttle one or two at a time because of COVID. Just one idea. I was trying to think of where is there parking nearby. By then, if golf is done, could we reserve a bunch of those spaces and potentially transfer people over?
I'm going to say potentially yes. And in fact, based on the presentation you had earlier, I think there may be a lot of say, positive results from that too. So let's say that's one option we can give back to the general construction manager, as well as the proposal by WRTA for that as well. So yeah, there's many things, including perhaps. But anyway, what the bottom line is, we want to save or eliminate as much of this additional cost as possible.
Steve, could you, in a situation like that, could you use a school bus?
Well, the issue is quote unquote carpooling, and so
Does that
the
count
answer,
as carpooling?
the real answer,
Yeah.
Hazel, I think the real answer is, if we can force the contractors back to the original terms of the construction, then we have no cost at all. And so the issue is, let's say, for example, that XYZ contractor reserves space somewhere that they have to pay for, and let's say it's the church parking lot. It might be the golf course parking lot. It might be a chunk of Stop and Shop's parking lot. So now all those guys are there at the proper time. Let's say that we can now van pool, okay, or school bus pool, or whatever we do, and that it meets the criteria for distancing. If we can do that and force them back to the original contract terms, then the town will not see any additional expense. So, given the couple of options that we just talked about, I believe that we can put that back into the box for consideration, and see how this comes out. In other words, I want them to prove to me that we can't do the things you guys just suggested, or that we couldn't.
The church is a great idea too, Steve. I mean, during the week it's empty.
That was one of the prices, by the way, because there's rent involved, there's maintenance involved, there's snow plowing involved, as far as the contractors are concerned. And so that's the story we got, was one of those prices.
Yeah. Any other questions from the board? So,
Yeah, a comment, Mark. I'm concerned with the school buses of having 40 cars parked on Eli Whitney Street, and then, forcing it into the neighboring streets. Just, I don't know. It's certainly not. I know, obviously, Steve, it's not. It's not ideal. It's not. You wouldn't be proposing it. But if we could come up with one of these other solutions, or potentially, creating some, even if it's rough parking on the new acquired land where we would be putting it anyway in the future, at some lesser temporary cost, just, I'd love to consider any of those other options.
Yeah, and that's the reason. I mean, to the extent that, let's say, there's a ultimate meeting of the minds based on the committees we talked about, seeing the real world, if you will. If we are going to have to spend town's money for which we don't get anything back from the MSBA, we really do want, as the school building committee, first of all, we acknowledge the hit and figure out what we have to do. But secondarily, if we spend the money, we want to spend the money so it has permanent value to the town. And, so we've looked at this thing in a number of different ways. And of course, the selectmen have, already heard our thoughts in regards to the property off on the other side of Eli Whitney. And, if that turned out to be a better solution than parking on the street, I'm certainly in favor of that. We as the building committee do not want to renege on our promises to the neighborhood. And we've tried very hard to stick to that, and would intend to do the same thing. But we do want the town to be aware that potentially this is a fairly large hit to our contingency if we have to spend it, and the town gets no benefit for it other than to continue construction.
Yeah, so Steve, I think this would probably require an amended special permit, and it would take a couple of weeks to get that posted and notify abutters. And, I think we'd want to hear from town departments, the police department, on the safety of vehicles parking there. I'd want to hear from DPW about snow removal, because we're talking about several winter months. And by the time we get that all put together, we may have a better solution if the town chooses to buy the Eli Whitney property. So I think it's a big hurdle to climb to get this done, and I'm not sure I'm sure you're exploring other options, but I feel like this is really a last straw effort. Maybe we really need to look at somewhere else, and I guess cost is a factor as well. So I certainly sympathize with that. So,
Lisa had her hand up. I don't know if you saw that.
What's that, Jim?
Lisa had her hand up.
Oh, Lisa, did you want? Go ahead.
Yeah, you just actually addressed, I was just going to ask the board that if, I wasn't sure if you were going to make any decisions tonight, that any long-term decision allow the director to evaluate during winter storms.
Yeah, we're going to definitely want comments from DPW, from police, fire, and probably from the school committee, or at least from, the superintendent. So I think there's a lot of people we need to hear from, but more importantly, it would have to be an amendment to the special permit. We'd have to notify butters, and I'm pretty sure we would hear from them. So
It's an amendment to the site plan.
Site plan.
I'm sorry, I said special permit, but amendment to the site plan. So
Mark, I think one of the problems that I foresee already is the fact on that across the street on Eli Whitney. Originally, I know that the Conservation Commission was talking about a small parking lot there, and to put in a parking lot there that would accommodate 40 cars, I think was much more than what had ever been thought of, as far as when the town buys that land and uses it for access into the area. So I think
I hope we need a parking lot big enough for 40 cars, and I hope that many people are using and accessing that open space. But you're right, it's probably a lot bigger than we would have imagined.
Exactly, and I think you're going to get a big pushback from conservation on something like that.
Hazel, couldn't they, on the 5 acres that, I'm sorry to interrupt, on the 5 acres the town's keeping, isn't there some more flexibility on that?
There is, yeah.
Well, just to consider what footprint that would be, it's roughly 120 foot square.
Not too big.
Yeah. All right.
Mark, Mark, may I ask one more question?
Go ahead, Jim. Yep.
Steve, I guess as I'm thinking about this in my mind, I mean, this is in the contract. Is there some allowance for the developer to push this onto us? Is this because of COVID? Is this something that he's allowed to come back? Because they knew there'd be no parking allowed. So the circumstances don't require them to figure out an alternative solution at their cost. Is there some kind of opt out in the contract that they can push this through to us? Is that something you're still trying to figure out?
Well, as I said, there were original terms that basically required the vendors themselves, the contractors themselves, individually to figure out what they were going to do with their workforce.
Right.
And because of the non-carpooling, it means that every driver from wherever they come from, quote unquote, gets to the site. And therefore, now the cars are there rather than whatever the contractor was obligated to do. And the reason why that's true is because, quote unquote, wherever let's say they get to the site under the original, they get to the point where under the original contract, 25 people are parked at the Stop and Shop parking lot on Route 9, based on whatever deal they've struck with Stop and Shop. Now, how do they get to the site from there? Under the original contract, the contractor had to get them to the site. And so the start work time was when they get to the site. If now they're somewhere else and they have to get to the site, now that's a let's call it an overtime charge to the project. It's different. And because it's different, it's on us. And
yeah.
So
Steve, I mean, again, I'm not sure.
No, I'm telling you, the span of the discussion so far, we did push back along the lines that you're suggesting, At this point, there's still more to investigate to how to do this. One of the things I was thinking of, with a word of presentation is, quote unquote, they're a public transportation agency. And therefore, if let's say we use them to say now it's not a carpool. Now it's a public transportation story. And as long as those people get on that bus or that service and they meet the COVID requirements of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, then I think we're off the hook again. And so I can see us now working with them to see how this could work through our construction manager and be back in the original position. So, I mean, I just, rather than saying, this is what we want to do, I'm saying this is an informational discussion of our problem. And we're just trying to make everybody aware of what the problem is and what the circumstance may be, which is somehow or another we get hit for additional money, which we don't have. And therefore, what are we going to do? Well, in worst case, we have to go back to town meeting. In which case, and it would be a fait accompli by then, this is an opportunity as the building committee to make this basically general information to the public, for which people will have an opinion, given the options that are out there. And everybody has their own idea as to what the solution is, which is not to park on Eli Whitney. And I agree with that if we can do something else.
Yeah, so Steve, I'm not necessarily sure that we're here to brainstorm solutions on it. I mean, I think you're really just asking whether we'd be amenable, and I think we've given you an answer on that. But I think you're on the right track with the VIA service. There's just some math in my head, and I don't know if the math works out, but at 25 weeks, which is about 6 months, maybe a little less, I think you're looking at, maybe 40 people, twice a day at $2 each. That's $100. I mean, I think it's only about $20,000 if I'm, I did that in my head, so maybe they're missing a zero, but that's if they each took one van.
And they can go to a van, Mark.
Yeah.
He
So
said
I don't want to spend our meeting brainstorming solutions, because I feel like the municipal building committee is already doing that, and they're only here as a last resort. And I do think parking on Eli Whitney is a last resort. So why don't we just leave it at that? Because I'm really not sure that we're accomplishing much by, I think we've got good people in place that are already trying to find solutions and are fully capable of coming up with the same line of thinking that we are. So I don't mean to cut everyone short, but I feel like we could brainstorm on this for an hour, and it really is in good hands at this point. So.
Yeah, and as I said, this is informational. Hopefully we don't have to talk about it again. Hopefully we'll find something else. But the something else that works the best, even your guesstimate of 20 grand, I see that as 20 grand out of the pocket of the vendor, not out of ours, because we will be able to, I believe, the scenario gets very close to the way the project was bid, and the responsibility for getting the workers to the site, is the contractors, not ours. And that's really the difference. That's what we have to do, is get it back into the format of the original construction contract.
All right.
I agree with that, Steve.
Let's move on, unless
Mark,
Robbins, did you have any comments? Jim?
Yeah, I did. I just have one comment. So Steve, the vans for VIA are going to be parking at the Department of Public Works upper lot where the school bus drivers park. That lot will probably hold 40 cars. You're probably familiar with it. I mean, that could be where the construction workers drive to, and the vans start there in the morning.
Yep, but again, if it's the contractor's responsibility, that's a liability to the town. So we'll let him do whatever he's got to do, as long as we can solve this issue. And whether the VIA people are parked there or not, probably doesn't matter. All I want to do is say, okay, it's back to the original terms of your contract, and we're not going to pay anything.
All right, that sounds like a good plan. So I'm gonna move on to the next agenda item. And thank you, Steve, for coming in and updating us on this. Next agenda item is a discussion of the foundation releases for Village Commons at 1 Gleason Street. Again, I'll turn to Jim Robbins for a summary of this. And we had a draft motion circulated today on this as well. So Jim Robbins, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you know, we've been working to try and tie up the issues regarding the design of the buildings, both commercial and residential, at the Village Commons residential condominium project. Thank you for that graphic, Kristen. That's very helpful. So as you know, Farouk has 8 lot releases currently. He's building 8 homes. He next needs to construct the commercial building before he can move forward with any occupancies beyond the first 8 units. Farouk has submitted a request for the last 7 lot releases. And one of the board's requirements to him before they would grant the lot releases is that Design Review Board would approve the commercial structure, the primary commercial structure. Farouk has submitted those designs to the Design Review Board. The board has met several times on the design, and they have now approved a design. Additionally, as you know, there were several inconsistencies in the residential type units. There were 3 different type units that we call A, B, and C. Farouk has submitted new plans which were reviewed by myself in the field and then brought back to the Design Review Board. The architect representing the applicant then made changes to those plans, submitted new plans which were reviewed in the field by a member of the Design Review Board and the Assistant Building Commissioner last week. The type C unit has now been agreed to be according to the plans, according to the approved plans, which were amended to reflect the actual building in the field. And also the summer house, which was a point that the planning board wanted to have settled, has been submitted to the Design Review Board and approved. So Farouk now has settled the conditions with the exception of a couple changes to units A and B, unit types A and B, which will be confirmed. Farouk is asking that we release the final building lots. As you know, in my memo to the board, I recommend that you hold back at least one of these units because the common area landscaping has not been installed. You see on the plan, there's a common area landscaping with a central terrace. That needs to be installed before the subdivision can be deemed complete. I would recommend that you hold back one of those unit numbers. Let Farouk choose the one that he would allow the board to keep. And also that unit should not be an affordable unit. I've discussed that with Farouk. So he should choose the unit as long as it's not an affordable unit.
Jim,
Yes.
when I went out last week and looked at the plans compared to what was built in the field, they were not the same.
Is
Now,
this unit C? The plan should have been corrected to reflect
Well,
the changes in the field.
A, B, and C. I didn't look at A and B. I looked at C. The plans that I had in my hand that I went out with to the field did not match the as-built that was done there.
Did you have the same set of plans that was approved by Design Review Monday?
I did.
You did?
Yep. And Bill made a number of notes on, he and I together looked at those plans and, you know, pointed out where there were discrepancies between the plans that we were looking at and the as-built. And we told for now, unless there have been new plans submitted since I went out there, and whether someone has had a chance to see whether they match the as-built, they were incorrect.
May I mention something?
Yeah.
So after your on-site visit with Bill,
Right.
That information was shared with Farouk and his architect.
Yeah,
And new plans were resubmitted reflecting all of those discrepancies, like changing everything.
right.
And that has been reviewed and confirmed that all of those comments were addressed.
Okay, Ed, has someone been out to the field to actually make sure that they match? I mean, I just, as I said, my concern about all these units at this point is that the building department has the plans that are correct to as built. Now, if they've gone out and corrected them, that's fine, but I think there needs to be confirmation by going out and looking and making sure that they're correct, because, you know, as I said, I just, until we make sure they're correct. And I did not look at the A and B units, so I don't know whether the corrections were made there.
So, Jim, can you respond to that? I mean, I heard Kristen's comments. I'm just wondering if somebody from building department has verified these changes, or how do we answer Hazel's question?
Sure. So the assistant building commissioner was in the field with Hazel, and he made notes, which I have in my office. The architect then adjusted the plans to address those findings that were made in the field. In other words, the redlined comments. The adjusted plans were delivered to the planning board. That's what Kristen was referring to.
Okay,
As far as verifying them in the field, I have not done that since returning on Monday. So I can do that Thursday. I can go out and look at not only type C, but I can look at A and B as well.
okay, I would appreciate that, because I don't want to give any releases till I know those plans are exactly conformed to the as-built. And we've been back and forth on this for months.
So Hazel, I think what we could do is release the lots to Jim's custody the way we did earlier, and then once he's gone out there and verified it in the field, he can then move forward with the releases, so we don't have to have the applicant back.
That's fine.
But we need to address the issue, of which lot, if the board chooses to hold a lot, which I agree with Jim's recommendation on that. Which lot that is, I know Jim's draft motion has suggested 7 lots to release. I'm assuming those don't include, that those include the affordable lots, because I don't want to leave the last affordable unit to the end. So anyway, anyone else on the board have questions or comments on this?
Just one point of
Go ahead, Jim.
order and one point of clarification on the process is what I should say. The planning board needs to sign the lot releases. Your signature needs to be notarized by a notary. Destiny is a notary. You'd need to call the office to make sure she's in the office and come up and sign it before it's official for Farouk's purposes, before he can use it to apply for a building permit.
Okay, so we would do that after you've been in the field to verify the plans. So that would be by the end of the week, probably. I mean, I think in the interest of time, it would make sense for us to vote on some releases tonight. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
Which is the affordable units that we made? They've been designated, have they not?
Farouk, your hand is up. You can probably answer that, but you have to unmute yourself. Go ahead. Farouk, you have to unmute yourself. No, you didn't unmute yourself. You must have clicked it twice. There you go.
Okay. Yes, the affordables have been identified, and they are 6, 10, and 13 Danya Drive. There are 2 Bs and 1 C, different kinds. But I also would like the board to release these lots because I'm dead there. I mean, I cannot do anything. Everything has been submitted. The last unit, the unit that Hazel is talking about, she submitted her concerns. All of them have been addressed and submitted. That's what Kristen was talking about. I mean, Jim was there. He looked at it too, and you can see it. It's the same exact unit that's on that plan, incorporating some of the minor comments that Hazel has brought, some typos and stuff like that. We fixed it all. So I mean,
it's not typos. All the windows are wrong. You know, I mean, it's not a minor thing. I'm not going to argue about it. But going back to the affordable units, Mark, didn't you say you wanted to make sure those were not part of the last to be released?
Well, you have 7 lots under construction now, right? How many affordables are in those 7?
1.
Okay.
1 is affordable, and I'm working on it.
Which one, lot 6 or lot 10?
It's 6 Dania Drive. It's not lot 6, it's 6 Dania Drive, which would be not 9. 9, it was already released in the earlier,
Right.
last year. One of the things I would ask is, I mean, this is to the board, instead of holding the last lot from release, you can hold the occupancy permit on it, because these lots are so close to each other. I have to do all this foundation in a sequence, and I have a $600,000 or $700,000 bond on it right now.
So,
That's more than
so the problem with that is the building department's already spoken on that on other projects. If the planning board has the authority to hold lots, but we don't have the authority to tell the building department not to release occupancy permits if those buildings are built to code. So that's not adequate leverage to complete the common areas. Now, your point about security, I'd like to hear Jim Robbins' comment on how much security we have if those common areas aren't completed. So I'm going to ask him to respond to that.
You have the bond for the you have security bond necessary to complete the common areas. Additionally, Farouk would probably be eligible to ask for some reduction based on the work he's done now.
Right.
If you're concerned about the security, hold that. Don't allow the the bond release.
Well, that's not on the agenda anyway. I don't think. The only thing on the agenda is lot releases.
No, I'm saying going forward, Mark. I'm saying when he requests security release, you don't have to release it if you're concerned about the common area.
So I'm just concerned if we were to hold back one of the lots, whether that's a hardship for the builder. And I'd just like to hear him respond to that as to why it would be a hardship, but if it would be. Farouk, you want to?
Well, I've already been slowed down for the past 3 or 4 months. I would have been almost more than 80-90% done. And I had to wait for the lot releases. The lot you're talking about is in the middle there. You don't want any of the affordables to be held back. So I have a lot that you can hold back, but it's just going to be in between the 2 houses, making it difficult to work in the other 2. I am willing to cooperate with the planning board in any form and shape you want. This will be done. There's a very large amount of money in the escrow right now, or in the bond. And like Jim said, yes, I can actually ask for a bunch of money back. And we have already, half of that thing is complete. And I really got to keep moving because my guys have no work to do right now. We can't put any foundations.
So Farouk, I guess I heard you say that you're willing to hold back one of the lots. Which lot is it?
If you were to, just allow me to put the foundation on and hold the rest of it back if you want. Lot 13, not house 13, but lot 13, which is, if you look at this plan that's displayed right now, you see on the left-hand side, there are 2 garages. Move the arrow down. One more, that one. Right there, that's 13, yeah. That's
Okay.
the one.
So but you want a lot release so you can pour the foundation.
That's all I want. I just want it, yeah. That way, then I'm done. Then I don't have to build the house if you don't want me to. At least the utilities will be all, connected and everything. So.
Yeah, but I don't think we can, if we release the lot, then it's either you can build it or you can't build it. Am I mistaken on that, Jim, or can we release it?
So if you release the lot, it's now in the hands of the building commissioner. I mean, you could have a gentleman's agreement, but a gentleman's agreement can't be enforced.
Right, so the question is do we release all 8 lots, or if we release 7 lots, and then you just pour the last foundation once we release that last lot?
Point of information, so I miscounted, it's actually 7 lots. He has 8 currently. It's a total of 15. He already has 8. He's asking for 7. So you would be releasing 6 lots and holding 1 back if you choose to hold 1 back.
Do we have to release the commercial lot, or is that?
I would, because the entire site is secured.
Plus, I have to build the commercial building too. So.
Yeah, but I mean, is that already released for him to build, or do we have to release that in order for?
It is not currently released, but neither is it mentioned in the covenant. So I would just err on the side of being conservative and release all the commercial building area for development.
Okay. So any other questions from the board on that?
But that's not part of your motion, Jim, at the moment.
That's correct. I did not include the commercial release, but I would, when you list the number of residential lots by number, and also say, as well as the commercial building sites.
Mark,
Well,
a comment?
It's not been approved. I mean, it's only the one commercial building that the design has been done on.
That's correct, but he can't get a building permit without design review approval for those other buildings anyway.
All right. And Mark, I'm just a little unclear still about the affordable units and your comment about making sure that those aren't the last ones built, and, if we're giving the releases, are those included in the lots which are listed here?
Well, there's 8 lots already released. The motion that Jim wrote addresses 7 lots. So that would be the total of 15, right? Which is total project. Am I right? So I believe that would include all of the affordable units, and those would all be built presumably at the same time as the rest.
So in other words, if we release all these lots, then essentially we're out of it. The building department takes over from here. Is that correct?
That's
except
correct.
for the security, Hayes, but except for the security, correct, Jim?
That's correct. We control the money.
Yeah, we would control the security bond, and he would have to ask us to release the security bond before he could get that money back.
But that's only really for the common areas, isn't it?
No, it's for the entire development. So he
All
has to complete the parking lots. He has to do the landscape. He has to do the victory gardens in the rear. So you have.
And not only that, he has to build the commercial buildings.
Yes.
Well, like not even, the ones that are, that haven't been designed yet. So, we have security for all of that.
Right.
One second, I think Jim had Jim Ball, did you have a question?
Well, it was more of a comment, Mark. I feel like the security serves the purpose that we need here to have these things done. I was out walking the site again today. I have to the hardship question you said. I mean, these are close together. I suspect you're going to have concrete come out and lay all your foundations at once. So if we didn't have the fact that we have security, a lot of work's been done already. So it's to some extent excessive, and we can control that to be sure that Farouk does the things he's supposed to do. I'm inclined to release the lot so we can get going and get this done.
Well,
I want it done.
I would agree with that. I feel like we've finally made progress on this. I know Hazel has some misgivings, but it feels to me like those those have been addressed, and if we release the lots to the custody of Jim Robbins to the town planner, for him to verify those changes that came up in Hazel's comments, that'll give us time to get in and get the lot releases notarized and save Farouk from coming back in next week for really what is something I think that Jim Robbins can verify.
Yeah, Mark, no, I agree with you on that. And I'm kind of wearing two hats because I'm sort of wearing design review at the same time. And I know the concern of design review and making sure that the plans match what's being built on the site. And so that's really where I'm coming from as far as the design and the plans, which I've seen. I've not seen an accurate plan yet on this project. So that was my concern on that basis. But, as I said, I'm willing to release them as long as, Jim knows my feelings about it.
Sure. Farouk, I think you had your hand up. Did you want to say anything else before we move forward?
Yeah, all I was going to say was if it's going to take you a few days to sign the release, just make sure that the building commissioner can start processing my building permits. I've applied for those building permits 4 months ago, and they're just sitting there. So I just don't want any further, I'm losing my construction time right now. So, I'm okay with if you want to wait a few days till Hazel make sure. It's already been submitted. Kristen already has it, so.
So Farouk, I'm not going to tell the building commissioner how to run his office. I don't think we have that authority, but I'm sure that once we vote on this, the process will move forward. And I'm sure they're aware of how quickly or how urgent it is for you. So, Jim Robbins, you want to address that at all, or have I done that enough?
It will take a few days, I'm sure, for the members of the board that are here to come in and sign the lot release forms, which again have to be notarized. So Destiny is going to have to notarize your signatures. Once the lot release form is complete, though, and it becomes part of the building application, it's now in the hands of the building commissioner. I would think that you want to guarantee a way that Farouk will begin the installation of the common area landscaping before all of the residential units have occupancy. And Farouk, I'm sure you'll say, don't worry, I'll get it done. Yet I know that the birch trees were also guaranteed to be secure and survive when you moved them. And I think they're about 80% dead. So I think you need to have a way to assure that the landscape is installed according to the plan. And the reason for that is not just because I want to see the landscape installed. It's because the residents that live in that development have an expectation to be able to enjoy that common area. And that common area also provides a buffer between them and their neighbors directly across the way. It's an important element to the design.
So,
I think you need to consider that.
So Jim, what method are you suggesting for that?
Well, that's why I recommended holding back one of the house lots.
So you don't think that we have enough leverage for that with the security bond that we could call in for non-performance?
You do have enough money. But if the town pulls that security bond, you become the developer, so you have to do the work. So we have to bid the work.
Yeah, and I think that effectively would, if we posted a public hearing to call that security bond, we would probably see quick action by the developer to forego that, because it would effectively eliminate his ability to get bond for any future projects either in this town or anywhere else.
That's true.
Right. So I think that's quite a bit of leverage. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I agree with your point. I don't want to see 15 occupied buildings there and no common area. So that's not an acceptable result. So let's hear what the board has to say.
Mark, I would say, Farouk, you're listening. I would don't be in a rush to ask for security if this work isn't done. That's important to understand. We feel strongly, I certainly feel strongly about that. I'm not going to speak for others.
All right, Baruch, go ahead.
Yeah, one last comment. I have done a lot of common area work already. And as I'm building the houses, I'm finishing the landscaping as we go. Jim was there, he looked at some of the landscaping. He asked me, because he knows a lot about gardening, he said, wait till the weather gets a little bit better, because when he came, it was very hot. So we have the plants and we're gonna plant it this month. So I am progressing. I think a lot of work has already been done. So I don't think there should be any concern that I will not do that and leave you in the lurch like that. You know, half of the subdivision is done and half the landscaping is going with it.
Baruch, there is concern. I think there's justifiable concern. So we'll leave it at that. But if anyone want to make a motion on this?
Well, I can take a shot, Mark. I move that the planning board approve the release of building lots 1, 2, 3, 12, 13, 14, and 15, and the commercial lots from the project covenant for Village Commons Transit-Oriented Village Residential Subdivision. The lot release forms are to be held by the town planner until such time as they have been executed by the board, and Jim has had an opportunity to confirm the recent plans are as built. And those forms shall be notarized, following which they may be conveyed to the applicant. Does that work?
I'll second that. Jim Robbins, are you comfortable with that language?
I am.
Okay. Any discussion of the motion? Okay, hearing none, I will do a roll call vote as before. Hazel, all those in favor, Hazel?
Yes, to approve.
Jim Ball?
Yes, Mark.
Tim Paris?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll vote yes as well. That's 4-0. We will all need to get in and get these lot releases notarized as soon as possible. Okay?
Thank you.
Can you confirm who seconded that for me, please?
I seconded it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Let's see. We have 142 South Street A&R plan. Kristen, you get a minute. Could you bring this up for everybody? I don't remember seeing this in my email. I may have missed it. All right, here it is. Jim Robbins, I'm going to let you describe this to the board because you're familiar with it and I can't read it very well on my screen.
Sure. So about a year ago, the planning board approved an A&R which showed the two building lots that are shown on this plan as lots 1 and 2. They're shaped like a, what is it? So four-sided parabola, I guess the right shape for that. So lots 1 and 2 are going to be developed as house lots. Lot 2, which is the one towards the bottom of the screen on the south side of the plan, thank you, where Kristen's cursor is, contains an easement for utilities and access to the rear large open space property. That easement contains a sewer line. Now, as you know, the town is going to receive the large open space lot to the rear that's identified as parcel B. Parcel B will be transferred to the care and custody of the open space, of the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission will put the property into chapter. The chapter 93 at the state does not allow any improvements to the property. So hence you have a small parcel that runs down parallel to South Street at the rear of the house lots and heading to the east of lot 2. That contains the sewer line that is in the ground. That will be the town's sewer line. So we need to create a separate parcel to contain that sewer. And it is now identified as parcel A on this plan. That's why we have a new plan, is to define a separate parcel to allow the Conservation Commission to put the large parcel, parcel B, into chapter without parcel A and the encumbrance associated with parcel A, which is the sewer line. So you have a new A&R plan basically to create parcel A and to create a new modified parcel B. I've reviewed it. The plan is fine. I recommend that you approve it.
Okay, has engineering had a chance to see this as well? And the parcel A is wide enough for the easement?
Lisa's still with us.
Lisa, are you still on? Lisa, if you're still there, you're muted.
I know that conservation has reviewed it, and I have had several correspondence with them that they're fine with this plan.
I don't think Lisa's still on. So I guess I would just ask that we have engineering review this before conservation puts this into chapter. Just to make sure that that's adequate for engineering and DPW.
So the parcel A is 30 feet wide, 20 feet of which is for the sewer easement. That is what they typically require for an easement. And there's an additional 10 feet, 10-foot width.
Okay, then that sounds like it'll be more than enough. So any questions from the board on this?
Just a point of curiosity, what does that sewer easement serve?
It serves the parcel to the east and the house lots that abut South Street.
Oh, so the sewer line is not on South Street itself? Strange.
That's correct. This is a separate sewer line.
Okay.
I wish Lisa were there to answer that question as well, but yes.
Yeah, I believe those 4 house lots are much lower than the road. So that's probably why the sewer line went behind them.
Oh, okay.
To flow by gravity.
And it was just a point of information.
All right, any other questions from the board? Kristen, could you just move it down to the bottom right so I can motion it? I just need the dates. Yeah. Okay, so I will make a motion to endorse a plan of land for Kendall Homes Incorporated, completed by B&R Survey, dated August 6, 2020.
Second.
Okay,
You want to add the address, Mark?
Oh yeah, well, we should identify the location. Plan of land at 140 South Street. If you could add that to the motion.
Thank
Hazel,
you.
Still second? Hazel, you still second?
Yep, second.
Any discussion of the motion? Again, I'll do a roll call. All those in favor? Hazel?
To approve.
Yeah. Jim Ball?
Yes, approve, Mark.
Tim Paris?
Yes.
Okay, and I also vote yes. That's 4-0 to approve. We'll go back to our agenda. I believe that's everything other than the August 4th meeting minutes. Jim Ball, do you want to take that?
Yes, Mark. I know that Kristen provided both August 4th and August 18th. We can go either with August 4th or both if everyone's had time to review both.
Yeah, I don't think it's on the agenda though, Jim. So
Okay. All right. So we'll go for the moment. Everyone had an opportunity to review the August 4th minutes. Any questions?
No.
I would move that we accept the August 4th minutes as provided.
Second.
All those in favor, Hazel,
Yes, to approve.
Jim Ball,
Yes, approve, Mark.
Tim Paris,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. That's 4-0. And Jim Robbins, is there anything I'm missing?
No, just a reminder that tomorrow night is the Master Plan Advisory Committee kickoff to reconvene the group with new excitement going forward.
Okay. All right, so we'll all be there tomorrow. I would also like to remind everyone that September 29th at 7 o'clock is the special town meeting to address the purchase of 31-33 Eli Whitney Street. Hope you can all make that, and we'll be discussing that at our next meeting.
Mark, where will that be?
That'll be at the
At the high school.
Okay.
And we'll have that on our next meeting because we have to do an A&R for that lot and discuss whether we want to support that motion. So we'll discuss that in more next meeting. I just wanted to give, as many reminders as we can. So hopefully we can get people to turn out for that. All right.
I apologize, Mark. Did you say the time?
7:00 p.m.
Thank you.
All right. So with that being said, I think that's all our business for tonight. So I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
Second.
Jim seconded. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Aye.
That's 4-0. Yes. Thank you so much. You have a great night.
Have a great night, everybody.
I'm just curious, who has a goat in there?
I think that's gotta be Hazel.
Me.
It's gotta
Not
be Hazel.
me.
Is that the goat or is that your phone?
It's my phone.
I just assumed it was Hazel.
Right.
I was like, she's got to have a pet goat.
I would have had a cow.
Pet goats are not, I mean, like, that's not unheard of, is it? I never thought it was a phone. That's funny. All right. Anyway, thank you guys. Have a
Put my goat on mute.
Good night.
Have a good evening.
Good night, everybody.